Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the GM. It is your guy, Boulanger, and up next, Lamar Jackson and this offense. Do me a quick favor as we get started. Hit like if it is your first time checking out the GM. Hit subscribe. Also, hit the notification bell so that you get updates when we upload new content. Let's talk about it. After setting the Baltimore Ravens leadership from EDC to John Harbaugh to Todd Monken and other departmental coaching staff on fire on Monday, it's time for me to turn my attention to Lamar Jackson and this offense specifically. Let me say something and get this out of the way. What I'm going to say in this video, I'm going to catch a lot of heat for because every time I talk about Lamar Jackson and this offense, I catch a lot of heat. And sometimes people will consider me a Lamar Jackson hater or something like that. Well, think what you want to think. But if you take what I say in this video uh, for truth, you see, you'll see the truth in it. You see, the reason why what I say is what I say is because I don't have an agenda. I don't have a fan base that I'm trying to please. I don't have a subscriber number that I'm trying to hit. I'm a fan of the Ravens since 1996. I'm a fan of Lamar. In fact, he's my favorite player, has been since Louisville. So I don't have an agenda by what I say. I think what I think, feel what I feel, say what I say. All right. And I think a lot of times that's why most of the GM crowd uh, watches our videos. Maybe we don't have the big numbers, and we don't have to have those big numbers, but I think people check us out because we'll keep things honest and truth over here. And so I watch a lot of the other channels, and this is no criticism; they do good work. But you watch them tiptoe around dealing with Lamar Jackson. You watch them address it, but not really address it, right? They kind of dip their toe in the water to deal with real issues, but then never really talk about the real issue. And we've never been afraid of the heat over here at the GM. And so if you guys are connected with us, that means you're not afraid of the heat also. Now that I've said that, let's get to it. Let's talk about the offense separate from Lamar Jackson first and foremost. Back in August, I believe it was, I said that this wide receiver group was a bottom 10 group. And if you guys have been checking us out since August, you guys will recall that I said that. And about 60% of anybody who responded said I was stupid, said I had no football, said I was crazy, said I was basing my assessment of this group on what they had done the previous year. Well, the truth is, that's how people get paid. That's how NFL players, NBA players, that's how they get paid, right? What you've already done is the evidence of the potential for what you can continue to do, right? So when I said that this group was a bottom 10 group, let me tell you what that was based on. Big signing of the offseason, Odell Beckham Jr. What did we know about Odell Beckham at the time that we signed him? We knew that he had not played contact football in 18 months and that he would probably be almost 2 months by the time the season started where he hadn't played real football. Was that false or true? That was true. Okay. Give or take a month or so, that was true. So there was more questions about the Odell Beckham signing than there were answers. Okay. But what do we know about Odell Beckham? That he is a dynamic wide receiver when healthy. But the truth was, he hadn't been healthy in about 5 years at that time and had missed the previous year of football. So, yes, it was a good signing if you didn't have nobody else to sign, but nobody really knew if that would certainly upgrade this offense. So, when I take his addition into consideration, I couldn't give it a whole lot of value because I had nothing to base it on. Okay. Let's go to the number one slash number two wide receiver, Rashad Bateman, who sounded off on EDC back in March when Edie said he wished he had a better wide receiver group. The one thing Rashad Bateman said in that response, that tweet, was something like keeping them healthy. Well, you know what? The Baltimore Ravens got a new group, in part or whole. And guess what, Rashad Bateman? He hasn't still been healthy. So it doesn't sound like it was the training staff. It sounds like it's more of his body breaking down. Maybe it's his training regimen. Maybe it's his diet. I don't know, but he hasn't stayed healthy. So when I take that into consideration, what we've seen this year, when when I said this was a bottom 10 group in August, I had to take what we had already seen from Rashad Bateman. Had we seen flashes of good potential? Yes. But what had we seen more of? Him being unavailable, which has been the same scenario that we've seen this year. And then when he is available, he's not getting open and then he's dropping touchdowns. So I couldn't add much value to him being around. Then I go with Nelson Aguilar. I think he's an 8-year veteran at this point. He's a solid receiver, but he's always been known for what? To have hand issues, drop issues. So when we get to Sunday and he drops the ball, we can't be surprised because that's what we knew him to be when we signed him, right? So I couldn't add much value for his addition. Is he a solid signing? Yes. Was Odell Beckham a solid signing? Yes. In comparison to what we already had. That's what you got to understand. In comparison to what we already had. Okay. At the time that I called this group a bottom 10 group, a couple of people pushed at me the narrative that, oh, the Baltimore Ravens have 5 first-round wide receivers. Well, the fifth guy that they were talking about, well, the fourth and fifth guy would have been Zay, who we had not seen at that time because he hadn't played in the NFL, and then Laquan Treadwell. Well, Laquan Treadwell, for people who came at me at that time, Laquan Treadwell has not caught more than 1,300 yards in his total career. And I believe he's an 8-year veteran as well. I think he came in the same year Nelson Aguilar came in. So what value was I going to add for a Laquan Treadwell signing? None. Now, let's fast forward to current day. So when we get to this Sunday and we see drops and people falling down on the ground and Odell Beckham leaving the game, going to the locker room after a diving catch, I believe it was. Well, that's nothing more than what we should already be expecting. Odell Beckham has continually been hurt. Nelson Aguilar, continual drops, right? And then when we add Mark Andrews in there, Mark Andrews has had an issue of dropping the ball since last year, actually since 2021. So when I gave an assessment of this wide receiving group or this receiving corpse, I gave it a proper assessment because when you pull the stats of the Baltimore Ravens passing and or receiving, which go hand in hand, we're a bottom 10 group. You see, what I do here is I don't get caught up in excitement because I'm one of those people you have to show me versus tell me. I'm a show and tell kind of person versus just telling me. And so the reason why this offense hasn't got it together just yet is because the additions at wide receiver were minimal in added value. That's the reason why this passing offense this year, as it pertains to numbers, are behind last year's passing offense. When you go 5-5, 5 weeks last year, 5 weeks this year, this offense this year is behind last year's offense. Well, how could that be? We signed Odell Beckham. Rashad Bateman was supposed to come back healthy this year. Nelson Aguilar's an upgrade over Demarcus Robinson. How could it be behind last year's offense? Because there was minimum value added. because there was nothing to substantiate the excitement we had. We got excited because of the addition by name, but we had nothing evidential to validate the excitement on. That's why it's behind last year's offense. So then when you look at what Lamar is working with, he's working with the same level of uh, potential as he did last year. No, it's the truth. You see, when you take Demarcus Robinson versus Nelson Aguilar is more athletic than Demarcus Robinson, but their impact is very similar. When you look at, I don't even remember who the wide receivers were really last year. When you look at Bateman last year versus Bateman this year, he's less of a guy. He's less of a guy. When you look at Devin Duvernay's impact last year versus this year, he's less of a guy. Tylan Wallace is already gone. And so the only guy you see really flourishing for the most part is Zay Flowers. So our whole passing offense right now rides on the hands of a rookie. See, I know that we don't want to hear this, but it's true. We literally got excited over the Odell Beckham signing by name only because it wasn't on performance. A lot of people hit me with, oh, if he hadn't got hurt in the Super Bowl, he would have been Super Bowl MVP. Well, the key was if he hadn't have got hurt. That seems to be the the attachment to Odell for the most part. Hurt. He's more unavailable than available. Now I hear people making videos about we should cut Odell or try and trade Odell. Well, hold it. You can't have been excited about Odell. Now you want to get rid of him. He is what he has been. He's been injury prone. He's injury prone now. So what are we saying? What are we saying? I had a guy come at me in the off season. A couple of guys, but one guy specific, said I was trying to kill morale. No, I wasn't. What I was doing was telling the truth, which is what I'm doing today, telling the truth. This wide receiver group is not better than last year's wide receiver group as it pertains to productivity. It's not. Every single person is having a down year. Mark Andrews, down year. Isaiah Likely, less of an impact this year than last year. Bateman, down year. You see, so when we think about what Todd Monken was supposed to do, the question is, what was he supposed to do it with? Now, that's not absolving Todd Monken for some of the foolishness in play calling. But that's the question. What was he supposed to do it with? You see, the trade deadline is coming in about 3 weeks on the 31st. Exactly 3 weeks because today's the 10th. And the Baltimore Ravens, if they're going to do anything this season, they're going to have to upgrade their wide receiver group. They're going to have to. They're going to have to go out and get a guy who wants out, needs out of his situation, and that team wants to cut his salary. They're going to have to go out and get a guy. You see, when I kept talking about a number one and I kept mentioning DeAndre Hopkins, I mentioned DeAndre Hopkins, I know probably 5 videos straight, and many people came at me and said, hey, we don't need DeAndre Hopkins. Well, what do you think about DeAndre Hopkins now? What kind of assistance could DeAndre Hopkins have offered to this offense now? When he was out there on listen how crazy and silly we are as an organization. When he was out there on the open market and nobody was signing him, the Baltimore Ravens had ample opportunity to grab a DeAndre Hopkins. But you know why we didn't? Because the organization from top to bottom believed the hype as well about Odell Beckham signing and the Zay Flowers addition and Nelson Aguilar. Again, I'm not knocking the signings, but my question was, what would they really be? And what we knew them to be was unhealthy and unavailable. And Zay, we didn't know what he would do at the NFL level, but he's a flat out baller. But when DeAndre Hopkins went unsigned all the way into August, he was ripe for the pickings. But we didn't have enough guts to go get him. And we let him walk to a AFC foe, which we'll face this week. I wonder what he does this Sunday. I'm interested to see that. You see, and that goes back to the flaw in our decision making. Maybe DeAndre Hopkins isn't the number one he used to be, but he's better than everything we have on this roster that other than Zay. So what guys can we get that may be available? I hear a lot of chatter about Devontae Adams, maybe, and he'll fit. He'll fit if we could somehow unload Odell Beckham's contract and grab a guy like a Devontae Adams. We may have to give up a first and a fourth or something like that to get him, or maybe a little more. But it's proof that we need a number one wide receiver. Many people say we don't need no number one. We got anybody can be a number one. That's not so. That's not so. When you look at the teams who are successful today, guess what they have? A number one. With the exception of the Chiefs, they just got the best tight end in NFL history in Travis Kelsey, serving as their number one. But all the teams that's balling have a number one and a solid number two. All the teams. And so I think that we have to make a move at wide receiver to get a for real deal go to guy. We have to stop with that narrative that we don't need a number one wide receiver because we do. Because a true number one makes a play on Sunday that wins that game. Now let me switch gears. Now for Lamar Jackson. You see, I won't make this long because people get antsy, get a little nervous when you talk about Lamar Jackson, especially if you look like me. Let's just be honest. Okay? But as he is my favorite player and he plays for my favorite team, when I give an assessment, I'm going to be honest in what I say. Okay? Lamar Jackson has been excellent in the completion percentage. He's well above 70%, but he's been average in his total performance. And that's truth. Okay? When we come all the way to Sunday's game, many people have said, oh, Lamar threw the ball on point all Sunday. I will agree with that mostly. He was throwing dimes. I will agree with that mostly. He was throwing pinpoint accurate passes. I will agree with that too, mostly. But here's where I have to part ways. You see, there were some plays that were left on the field. Okay? I don't expect any quarterback to ever go 100% in completion percentage, ever. I've never seen a game that looked like that. And the closest thing to that was this year when Tua Tagovailoa went 17 for 17 before he missed a pass. But since we're talking about Lamar Jackson and pinpoint accuracy and throwing dimes, There was a dime he missed in the first quarter where Zay Flowers was open behind all the defenders, and either Lamar Jackson didn't see him or overthrew him or underthrew him. I can't remember the context, but if Zay gets that ball, now he may have dropped it based on what Sunday was looking like. I'll be honest. But if Zay gets that pass, he walks in for a 50-yard touchdown. There were a couple of passes that were caught that were not dimes or not pinpoint accurate. You see, I want us to have a right assessment. When it comes to assessing Lamar Jackson and his QB performance, I want us to learn how to have a right assessment. See, we have an all or nothing assessment. You see, when he plays well, then we consider all things are well. And when he plays poorly, we say all things are poorly. What I'm saying is he mostly had a good game. And his wide receivers had a lot of drops. His tight ends had some drops. And then there was some turnovers. But if I'm going to make a right assessment, I'm going to make Lamar Jackson 100% responsible for what he is responsible for. See, I'm not going to make Lamar Jackson responsible for a bad play call. I'm not going to make Lamar Jackson responsible for the wide receiver grouping, meaning who is or who is not on the field. I'm not going to make Lamar Jackson responsible for who's in the backfield with him. I'm not. I'm not going to make Lamar Jackson responsible if a pass hits a wide receiver's hands and he drops it. But what I will make Lamar Jackson 100% responsible for is his job at QB. Do I expect Lamar Jackson to be perfect? No. But I will hold him responsible for what he is responsible for. Okay? And the truth is, he was throwing pinpoint accurate passes all game, or mostly all game. But when the game is on the line, he doesn't always make the best decision. And that's where I see the greatest flaw in his game is. When the game was on the line in the fourth quarter, he had already pre-selected before the play even was snapped where he was going with the ball when he threw that interception to Joey Porter Jr. He had already locked in to where he was going. Well, Belanger, how you know? Well, the game tape says it. Okay. But then I'm gonna give you an example of something he said that says it also. But let's talk about the play and the decision. You had already pre-selected to go to a guy who had not been available most of the game. You had already pre-selected to go to a guy who had already left the game that you're in, which means he wasn't 100%. And you choose to go to him on a back shoulder fade at 5'10 is what Odell Beckham Jr. is against a 6'2 Joey Porter Jr. Bad decision. Even if you had pre-selected to go there, when you process that as you walk to the line of scrimmage to see who he is lined up against, the decision to go there is a bad one because you have a guy who is 5 inches taller and longer who you're trying to throw a back shoulder fade to have Odell Beckham Jr. go up over him and make the play. Bad decision. That meant he was not going to look and see if Mark Andrews would come open. He was not going to look and see where the back out of the backfield was. He was not going to look and see where Zay was. I don't know who else was on the field. He was not going to look anywhere else but Odell Beckham Jr. He had already pre-selected, and it was easy for the defense to read, and it was easy for Joey Porter Jr. to pick that ball off. Bad decision. And we've seen this kind of stuff in crunch time from Lamar Jackson before, going to the wrong place with the ball. Okay? Now let me give you the his words in his post-game press conference that let you know that he had already pre-selected where he was going with the ball. In his post-game press conference, What he said was when he was asked specifically about the interception when he was going to Odell Beckham, he said, "Well, I was trying to give my," he was gonna say dog. He was gonna say I was gonna give my dog a chance to make a play. But he changed the word. If you listen to the tape, you'll hear it. But he said, I was trying to give my guy a chance to make a play. Now what that means is you had already pre-selected. See, if I'm going to give my guy a chance, that means he was the he was considered to be the only option on that play. See, because he didn't say, well, I surveyed and looked and see nobody else was open, so I was going to give him a chance. No, he said I was going to give my guy a chance, which means it was pre-selected. Bad decision. Okay. And then he turns around and fumbles the ball away. Yes, whoever it was, whether it was Daniel Falele or whether it was Ronnie Stanley, yes, they got beat from the jump. But as the quarterback, you know the game situation. You know the game situation. You know that the game is on the line. You know the one thing you can't do is get sacked and turn the ball over. You can get sacked, but can't turn the ball over. And the reason why I'm holding him responsible more than even the offensive tackles, yes, the offensive tackles were trash, 100%. But the reason why I'm holding him more responsible on that particular play is because he has a fumble in almost every game this year. Lamar Jackson has 7 fumbles on the season with 3 losses. I say 7 because on the play that he was sacked and fumbled the ball and it was recovered by Cincinnati, it was turned over because of a penalty. But that ball was still on the ground. That's what I hold him responsible for. Poor decision making, poor throw, and putting the ball on the ground, which is a theme, not just this year, but we've seen this kind of behavior from Lamar before. And the reason why I'm talking about it is because I think that he is great. And when your guy is great, you expect greatness. I didn't say perfection, I said greatness. You see, because if he doesn't throw that interception and you say, you know what, nobody's open, let's let me toss it out of bounds. We get 3 points. We get 3 points. But we've seen too many times where we're turning the ball over in red zones. Whether we're turning the ball over going into score or we're turning the ball over on our side of the field in which then when they take over, they're already in the red zone. We're seeing this too many times. That's the second time Lamar Jackson has turned the ball over on a fumble in our end of the field, which puts them in immediate scoring position. That's what I hold him responsible for. It has to be a heightened level of awareness from the quarterback position, and it has to be better execution. I do agree. He was putting balls where they needed to be on Sunday for the most part. But it does not absolve him from throwing that interception, and it does not ignore the fact that he put the ball on the ground again. Because you got to begin to feel that pressure. Now, I've already took the task, the coaching staff, and why they didn't give them tackles help wherever TJ Watt was lining up. Because we had already seen TJ Watt destroy games this year. So it's a poor coaching decision. But even when the coaching decision is bad, we have to be on the field as players. They have to be on the field as players, executing to the best of their ability. So that's what I hold him responsible for. And you guys can be mad and you guys can say I'm overcritical, but this is not critical. This is a proper assessment. If you go back and look at the tape, listen to the post game conference, look at the interception, look at the strip sack fumble, exactly what I'm talking about is about decision making and execution. And it has to be better, especially in crunch time. Especially in crunch time. So I got more to say. So stay tuned for my State of the Union, excuse me, State of the Ravens video coming up probably Thursday. But I got more to say about the organization. I got more to say about Lamar Jackson. And I'm going to speak very clearly and very loudly about the state of the Baltimore Ravens. I'm your guy, Boulanger. This is the GM, and we're out.